So we've been going through this 3-week series, and so this is week 3, where we actually get to have all these wonderful people who have experience with this topic give us their wisdom. We have a whole bunch of questions and some real awesome people up here. So once everybody's situated, I'll do the introductions. Derek. Good. Panel, welcome. So first up, to introduce, obviously, we all know them and love them, Derek and Sonia. The really fun part is I actually have questions for everybody. So I have 2 questions for every person up here. So Derek and Sonia. So the first question is, where are each of you from?
I'm from Nebraska. Page, Nebraska.
The little town of Page, Nebraska. And just a little note on Page, it's a town of like 120 people. So the day that we got married in the town, in the little church in town, like we probably tripled the size of the town. Something like that. So that's pretty cool. But I'm from Gearing, Nebraska.
And how old were you when you 2 met?
And I was 26.
Awesome. Well, next up we have Pastor Stephen and Susan Knoll of Harvest. All right. So the first question is, how long have you been in ministry?
41 years.
And then what's just a fun fact about your relationship? Some fun memory that you 2 have together that you'd love to share.
Oh, I'm trying to, we've had so many fun memories because we've been married almost 32 years. Well, I'll tell you, it's not so much a fun fact as it is a fact. When we were first married, we were not planning to have children. But there was a little boy in one of our churches who was 9 months old, and he just stole our hearts. And about 2 years later, I started thinking about it, and I said to him one day, I don't think I can live my life without having a child. And lo and behold, he'd been thinking the same thing. So we have 2 kids. Our daughter Lindsay is 29, and our son Luke is 26. So.
Awesome. Next up we have Derek Cook of The Rock, Laramie. So I don't know much about you, so what's your favorite ice cream?
Butter pecan.
And how long have you been here in Laramie?
I've been in Laramie for about 4 years now.
Awesome. All right, next up, we have our very own Josh and Elena Ruckman. All right, my question for you 2 is, how long have you 2 been married?
We've been married for just over 8 months.
The next question I have is, how do you 2 always look so stylish? They could go in with $30 to a thrift store and come out looking like this, and I look out like this with more beat-up clothes.
I have not thrown away any clothes since 8th grade. Josh has an inherent skill of styling himself since the day he was born. Designer diapers is how you just...
All right, and then we have Caleb and Sam.
So, we're trying to be the cute couple tonight. Didn't plan to match. Totally did.
My first question for you 2 is, how long have each of you been with the Chi?
Of the Alpha?
Obviously. As we say, if they ain't with the Chi, they ain't worth a try.
Back in the day, no, I'm just kidding. 4.5 years. 5 years. Yeah.
Since 2015 was when we officially got connected into
True.
Awesome. The second question is, which of the two of you is most spontaneous? Give an example.
Okay, I have a story. So, we have weekly date nights, and last semester we were going to drive to Applebee's, I think? Was it Applebee's then? Okay, she knows because I tell her all my stories. She remembers them creepily. So we were on our way to Applebee's, and we were like, should we go to Applebee's? Maybe we shouldn't. I don't know if I'm feeling like Applebee's. And he's like, I don't know, maybe. And we're like about to turn into Applebee's. And then all of a sudden, and he's driving, all of a sudden, he doesn't turn and he just keeps going straight. And then he gets on the highway, and I'm like, where are we going? He's like, I kind of want Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, are you really going to Cheyenne right now? He was like, yeah, why not? And so maybe he was.
All right. That's awesome.
But I went along with it.
We're both very spontaneous.
I figured she jumped out of a car at proposition with a car ride with her fiance, but you know. All right, and then we have Heidi. So what are your plans after your experience of helping staff Chi Alpha? What do you want to do after this?
So the long-term hope is to actually get certified in Christian counseling, because I would like to do that long-term.
My final question to you is, what are your feelings about cheddar cheese?
That was unexpected. Pepper Jack's better. Okay, apparently I have to tell the thing. So, Salt people go to Casey's house on the way back from Salt before we got stuck and spent an extra day getting back. And Casey brings out like these delectable cheeses. And she's like naming all of these delectable cheeses. Like really, it's surprising how accurate she is. And there's like a wine encrusted one and all of this fancy stuff. And then she picks up this piece of cheese and she eats a bite of this piece of cheese. And she's like, unexpected cheddar. And so we weren't sure if the cheddar was, if it was unexpectedly cheddar, or if the cheddar was unexpected, or what was going on. So now there's a lot of unexpected cheese getting thrown around by Jessica.
It's true. Dodge it on an inch.
Beautiful cheese. It is actually a kind of cheese.
So the way that tonight's going to work is, obviously, since last week we've been pushing for folks to text in questions. That survey, the text-in survey, is still open. So if you want to ask an anonymous question, you can go ahead and text that in. We'll get it on our little server, and we'll be able to ask it. Nobody will know who's asking the question. That said, if you have something that you're just dying to know, just raise your hand and kind of blurt it out if there's like a lull. So we're going to open up the panel discussion with the very first question, which is, how do you distinguish, aside from the obvious, between the negotiables and non-negotiables of the list? And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, when we had talked about the 5 questions to ask yourself before entering a relationship, one of the things we talked about was the list of the ideal spouse and then realistic expectations about what was on that list of a non-negotiable trait versus negotiable trait. So how do you tell the difference between negotiables and non-negotiables?
Pray about it is my knee-jerk reaction. So, negotiables are things that aren't pertinent to the relationship, right? So like, if she's blonde or if he's blonde, okay, you should love the other person anyways. Like, that's a good start.
definitely things like values, character, those to me would be non-negotiables. The relationship with Jesus, that would be a non-negotiable. I mean, I wanted tall, dark, and handsome, but I got scrawny and cute. That was a negotiable. But the fact that he loves Jesus was a non-negotiable. So I think, character, relationship, those are non-negotiables.
She got all this.
That's so great.
I don't think so.
Anybody else is welcome to answer. All right, so I guess we'll move on to the next question, which is, how do you seek healing from trust issues caused by traumatic experiences from previous relationships?
Can you ask that again?
How do you seek healing from trust issues caused by traumatic experiences from previous relationships?
I guess I'll answer. I have a mic. So, from experience, this is something that first, you need to seek God in, because He can heal, and He does heal, and it is His delight to heal. That is His delight. From experience also, there are some things that are healed in the moment, like that. And there are some things that you're going to keep coming back to. And you're going to have to keep coming back to them. And it is something where God is refining you, and it is something where I would strongly suggest that you invite someone in to love you well towards that healing. It is important that you not try to heal in isolation, because what that will breed is more trust issues. Okay, and that does not set you up for a healthy community to be a part of the church, which is the body of Christ. It doesn't set you up for a healthy relationship with God. So it's very important that you find someone who will love you well in a godly way. I would also always advocate for a good Christian counselor. That's a thing.
I can add from personal experience. So in high school, I went through a lot of unhealthy relationships and flings with guys, and I was really hurt physically, and, well, not physically hurt, but emotionally because of my physical relationship with men. And coming to college and having a lot of hurt and becoming a new, well, not really a new follower of Christ, but more of a new commitment to God. Really seeking Him out. I wanted to seek for healing. So just like what Heidi said, I knew I needed a community that was going to help me. But as kind of just to confirm what Heidi was saying, as I was praying for healing for years, this is I'm still healing from past hurts. But after praying for a while, I came to realize that God wanted to bring wanted to bring decent and kind men into my life, so that I could learn what that not all guys are jerks, or not all guys are bad or disrespectful. That there are truly godly men in my life that I should cultivate healthy friendships with and within my community. And that really, really helped me to heal from my past pain. And now my perspective on men is not even close to what it was. And although I'm still healing, I believe that God has placed men in my life that have truly helped me to heal. Well, and other people too.
I just say, like, if you recognize that you do have a trust issue, and you're like, I don't trust people in relationships, then number one is to just tell somebody about that. And because I think when we have issues that we just kind of lay dormant and just stay in the recesses of our minds where we just worry about things, they have more power over us than when we just go ahead and say it out loud and tell somebody, kind of get it in the way. And so just to, first of all, recognize, I have trust issues, then tell somebody, and then to begin to seek help from a healthy community, whether that's your pastor, whether that's people here at Chi Alpha, whether it's a brother or a sister or a friend, whoever, just tell somebody and seek for prayer, seek for counseling from your pastor, and then, find a godly Christian counselor, like all of the above, just begin to address it and kind of go after it proactively, rather than just like, feel like there's no hope. Just know that you do actually have the ability in Christ to overcome those issues.
This is where I plug for small group. Get involved. Also, again, details. I said that the survey was still open. So here it is. Text J. Reckman 337 to 22333, and that'll be our anonymous survey. The next question I have for our panel is, if you could give the younger version of yourself, or the two of you, one piece of advice, what would it be? And I'd say directed towards relationships.
Well, one thing I would tell my younger self is that when I got into a relationship and got married, to learn to love, accept, and forgive this person the way they are. Because I think we spent, well, maybe not you, but me, you spend those first few years in marriage trying to change them to be what you think they should be. And it's very frustrating. It causes a lot of hurt, anxiety. And when you can look at that person that you're with and say, I love you just the way you are. I accept you the way you are. All your little quirks, all your little weirdness, it's okay, because that's who you are. And then you learn to enjoy those things about them.
And he's got quirks.
And he's got quirks. He's got quirks. He's got quirks. And I would have not wasted so much time trying to change him and just say, hey, you are the way you are. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, one thing that I would say is I went to a Bible school, and it was called North Central Bible College, and they called it North Central Bridal College. And they said you'd get a ring by spring or your money back. So I go there as a sophomore. Yeah, I go there as a sophomore, transferred from Shatter State, Western Nebraska, and I'm thinking I'm going to meet a girl right away, and whatever, I'll be married before the end of college. And I saw that happen to a lot of friends. It didn't happen to me. And I mean, I had a few maybe casual relationships, things like that, where it's pursuing the coffee dates that Max was talking about a couple weeks ago and things like that. But whenever we got to define the relationship, they're like, yeah, see you later. It's been fun, but not that much fun. So, anyway, that's, yeah, so I was on the short end of the stick a few more times. And yeah, but the reality was, I got pretty impatient, pretty frustrated. I'm like, if this is where I'm supposed to meet my girl, right? Anyway, in the midst of that, it was pretty hard. And graduating Bible college was hard because I'm like, oh great, now where am I going to find her? And the reality was, it's like, I mean, I thought I'd be married by 21, 22. I really did, and I got married at 26 or 27. I think I was 27 when we got married. And that wasn't on my to-do list, so to speak, right? I planned to get married much earlier. And I saw my sister get married at the age of 20. And so but the reality is it's different for everybody, obviously. Don't get impatient. Don't get frustrated. Trust God with the process. And just keep moving forward, trusting Him, believing, that she's out there. And then, I met Sonia, after working with Chi Alpha at the University of Nebraska for a few years, and the rest is history. And I wouldn't have, traded that. And even those years of, being single, yes, she says it were fine to me, but I don't know about all that. But there's some of that, I wouldn't trade because it led me to her, you know what I mean? And so that's where I want to be, and, anyway. But don't get impatient, and really I see that with a lot of young people today. And I would have told myself that. I'd be like, just chill out. It's all going to be okay. Because we can say that, you can see that in hindsight, but you can't see that in the moment. And I had plenty of, I wouldn't say tearful, but pouty, certainly pouty moments with friends in college as we looked through, whatever. I'm not going to go into some of those stories. But, yeah, guys do that too. But, yeah, I don't know.
I would also add, just enjoy the single years. Because there's just so many fun things that you can do as a single person. I wasn't married until I was 30. Let me tell you, when you're turning 26, 27, and there's no one there, I mean, I went through a lot of the same thing he was talking about. You start to panic and you think, and you doodle-doo, and you doodle-doo, you know? And I remember when I was 28 years old, and there was no man in sight, praying to God and saying, God, if you want me to be single, I will remain single. That is okay. And I think I finally got to a place in my own heart where I laid it down and I gave it to God. And about a week later, he spoke so clearly to me. He said, you're going to be married in your 30th year. And you know what? I just let it go at that point. I said, fine, God, if that's going to happen, you're going to make it happen. So enjoy your single time. I loved it. I love being married too, but I enjoy being single.
One thing I'm going to tag on that, because I'm really actually very passionate about this. I am the 26, 27. It's all good. One thing that God has shown me is that there is also a danger in hardening your heart. And being to the point, basically, like, this is the funny story that I've shared with a few people now. When I was about 2 years into college, there was this Protestant nun missions that was like over on the East Coast. And I was like, I'm gonna go be a Protestant nun. I was like, then I don't have to deal with people, I don't have to deal with trusting with people, I don't have to deal with the whole, like, all the hormones and the drama and the crazy. I don't have to do it. I will be a Protestant nun. None of you guys got it, no. And what God showed me is that when we are also in that place where we decide that we are going to be single, and it is not because he has spoken to us in a place of health, it means that we have trust issues that we are not dealing with. And it means that that is a place for healing. So a question that I would also call you to ask, if you're not the hormone craze, that's not where you're living, is also, are you okay with being single, if that's what God calls you to? And are you okay with being married, if that's what God calls you to? If you cannot answer yes to that, you need to seek healing for him. Your identity is in a place that it needs to not be. And you need healing in the area of trust.
There's so many times I'm just like ready to drop the mic, but I don't want everybody's ears to hear it.
So I have a question. How do you get to that fine point between like putting it all to God and being like, okay, this is where I'm at, this is, like maybe hearing or feeling like I'm going to get rid of when I'm 30. And then the other extreme, like hardening your heart, how do you get to that middle ground, that happy middle?
So, I got a dream a while back, which I'm pretty sure I misinterpreted, which was that I was going to get married at 30, okay? So it's very relevant. And so I was very hard in my heart against the idea of having a relationship. And this was about a year and a half ago, right? And so I'm young, and I'm like, yeah, I have so many years ahead of me. I don't have to think about this. I don't have to worry about this. And I really, really, really hardened my heart. And it took a conversation with your boy down and Josh for me to realize that maybe I was wrong. And so I went on a 4-day fast and dedicatedly sought God and was like, God, am I supposed to even think about dating right now? You know what he told me? He told me, open your heart. And then a week later, single line conversations, and then we started dating. It was like out of nowhere, but ultimately, I know what it's like to harden your heart, and to get out of that takes some extra spiritual pushing and nudging, but respond to that. When you feel that, respond to that. Or if you know you have a hardened heart, let God soften it. You really have to just give it up. Now, as far as, being single forever, I can't necessarily speak to that, or you guys wouldn't trust that I can speak to that. So, anyways, if somebody can comment on that side of things.
Yeah, so I'm also going to kind of add on to that. Maybe. There we go. For the first part about just like not hardening your heart. About not hardening your heart. So after a particularly kind of messy breakup that I had, I just kind of got into this like mind space and heart space that I was like, I won't date anyone ever again. And I told God, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm so sick of like getting hurt. I'm so sick of hurting people and just not, like, I was just fed up with it and I was done. And kind of what Caleb was saying, like, God, like, figuratively, like, kind of had to like have a sit-down conversation with me, being like, okay, like you're allowing bitterness, you're allowing hatred and your own like self-pity to get in the way of my plans. And like, I don't know, it was a series of moments where I just kept telling God no. I was like, no, I'm sick of it. Like, I don't want to feel really anything. And God was like, do you understand like what you're saying to me? It's like you're denying a gift that I have for you. Because I had known that I was going to get married like back in high school, and I was just really just kind of just being rebellious in that. And so I also agree that you need to like really analyze your heart, analyze your motives behind just where you're at, and whether or not you're doing it because you have been hurt in the past, or if you're doing it because you genuinely are content being where you're at. And so even before, and so to answer the second part of the question about like just being single, like throughout high school, I was like always looking for like my future spouse. Like, I was just looking like left and right, up, down, like everywhere for my future spouse. And right, kind of, no. And like and so I was kind of on the other extreme. So I kind of hit both extremes, and I was just like, I had to come to a place where like I had to genuinely like give like that up to God. I was like, Lord, like, I feel like you told me that I was going to get married one day. He was like, but I'm not guaranteed that. And I don't think any of us is really guaranteed that we're going to get married. Like, yes, it's an amazing gift from God, but I don't believe any of us is guaranteed that. And so I really had to surrender that to God, because it had become an idol in my life. I put my will above God's will, and taking like my steps and being like, oh, like, what about her? Like, always just looking, and God was just like, do you trust me? And so I really had to lay it down and be like, okay, God, like, even if I interpreted this wrong, even if I am single forever, like, I am content in my relationship with you, and that's all I need. And so, like, I guess like a question to gauge is, like, ask yourself, if God told you that you were going to be single forever, how would you respond? Would you respond with contentment? Be like, okay, like, I'm okay with that. Or would you be like, really like broken and like fuming at God, like, why would you do this to me, type thing? And so I feel like that's kind of how you can gauge whether or not like, you're approaching just like that healthy contentment with the Lord.
I have a quick thing to say. It's more application-wise. So I was definitely on the opposite spectrum of hardening your heart. I was just like, I needed to be married. I just wanted a man, and I have some father issues, I guess, but like so does a lot of people. But anyways, I really was addicted to that love and that emotional connection and security. And so I knew I was in a really unhealthy place in college, and one of my mentors had encouraged me to basically go on a fast, but a 1-year fast from all men. Like, you know, like us, like I can only speak for girls, but I'm sure guys struggle with similar things. Like us girls, like we don't have to be seeking out a relationship. Like we don't have to be seeking out a relationship to be like constantly thinking about a relationship in our head, you know? So that was kind of me. And so I like gave that up to God. I like wrote myself a contract, and I was like, 1 year from today, I am giving up like all, like even potential of a relationship, no thoughts about it, like truly wanting to give my life to working on my identity with Christ for 1 year. And like during that year, I was like, Lord, please don't send any man towards me. I asked God to protect and guard my heart because I needed that. I needed God to protect me from maybe guys. Like I wanted to truly honor him and to seek him in my, and truly know what my identity was through him and not in other guys. So I asked him to not send me guys that even were like not even on the radar, or not even guys who, not even like, you know, guys can like creepily like message you on Facebook and they're like, you get it, right? Like I even asked for like none of that, no stupidness, you know, and I just wanted God to completely protect me so I can work on a relationship with him. And a year later, I was like a completely changed person in that, like in that regards with my identity, and I grew so much closer to him. Literally like a month later was when we started dating, and like I'm not saying that'll happen to everyone, but I encourage you to truly pray, like even to an extreme measure, what you truly need to fully seek your identity in Christ, because having an identity in anything else, in anyone else, is going to destroy you, basically. So,
All right. Some good answers. One of the fun things about holding the mic is I can rewind and give my own answer for best advice, which was, don't get in a relationship until you're ready to face your selfishness. So any of these people will testify that you find areas in your life that you're significantly more selfish than you realize. It doesn't mean that you have to get rid of it before you go through it. It means you have to be ready to face it and then fight it. All right. The next question is, can I be in a relationship if I don't have the right answers to the 5 questions? Which, let me pull those up for the folks who weren't here 2 weeks ago, to just go over those again. Which again, the first one is, do I understand Jesus' love for me? 2, is my self-worth in Christ or the person you want to pursue? 3, instead of looking for the right one, am I becoming the right one? 4, am I actively pursuing purity? And 5, if I have hurt, have I given God and time and permission to heal me?
I mean, to that question, I would just say, like, yes, you can. You know, God has given us freedom, you know. He's given us agency and, you know, ability to make decisions, and so God will honor your choice to go ahead and jump into a relationship. But I think at that point, you know, we do so to our own peril, you know, and just, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah, I concur with that. Yeah, I think like if you, especially those like first 3, like if you don't know Christ's love for you, if you're not pursuing sexual purity, and what was the second one? Yeah, is your self-worth in God or in the person you're pursuing? I say if you answer no to any of those, I would highly suggest that you not go into a relationship. But like Derek said, you can. You absolutely can. It's just gonna be, I feel like it's gonna cause a lot of heartache in the process. And so like, my question to like counter that is like, what's the rush? Like if you truly want to pursue God and to honor this relationship and to honor that person, if you can't answer these questions like honestly, like, or like yes to these questions honestly, like what's the rush in doing it? Like why not take that extra time and really understand God's love for you, really like pursue sexual purity, really like make sure that there are no other idols in your life before you enter this relationship.
I'd say too, the key word there is like pursuit of those things. Like we're not going to understand Jesus' love for us until we get homeless in heaven. Like fully understand. Like, so of course you can't, expect that that's the standard, but I think it's pursuing all those things, like having taken actual steps into it. So like with sexual purity, like I think I had a goal for whoever I married and like their like place in like that struggle or whatever. But I think God changed my heart in realizing that like it was that pursuit of it and like actual like that Josh was like genuinely pursuing that there were active steps that I could tell you exactly what he was doing in that. And then for myself and like understanding God's love for me, like things like doing devotionals or like being in community and growing and like understanding of that. Like those are tangible things that I'm doing to pursue a better knowledge of who God is. And of course, like, yeah, you're never gonna reach 100%, but are you like pursuing and like can you look at the steps you're taking in that current season of life in all 5 of those questions? Like I'd say that, yeah, same, you can, and you can want. Not good.
Yeah, and if you're in a relationship now and you see that, well, you don't have the right answer to those 5 questions or a couple of them or one of them or whatever, talk to, myself, a small group leader, a pastor, find a community to help you amidst that and to fight that battle, whatever it is, your self-worth and for sexual purity, things like that. And the other thing is maybe there's a DTR coming in your relationship as well, where you need to talk about it again and say, hey, there's some things that aren't right with me right now. And I mean, however specific you need to get is up to that relationship probably at some point. But where you say, hey, I'm not saying I don't like you and want to pursue this relationship, well, right now I just can't. There's a few things that I've just got out of whack in my life. And I need to step back and reevaluate those things. And I want to still be your friend and all those kind of, and maybe that relationship comes back around. But sometimes you have to step out of those things and take drastic measures in yourself and for your health, spiritually and otherwise, and for the other person as well.
To clarify, DTR means the define the relationship talk.
Real quick, I wanted to kind of like address the last question, which is about the pursuit of healing. That is a box that I will probably get on here. So, I've got a lot of friends who have been married. I have a lot of friends who have already been divorced. I'm 26, they're my age. I've seen it done well, I've seen it done not well. I try to learn from other people so I don't have to do the things too. Sometimes I do the things, but whatever. One thing that I would really, really strongly caution you against is, yes, sometimes healing happens in the context of the relationship. That is not what I have observed in the vast majority of those relationships. The problem with ignoring that question or bypassing that question is that most of the time it will predispose you towards getting together with someone who is not healthy. And then it will predispose you towards a codependent relationship that will die and that will choke both of you in the process. So that is my caution there. That was a little hard. My other really big point of advocation is I would strongly advocate that if you are in a relationship with someone, you are engaged, you are going to get married, do premarital counseling together before you get married. Communicating with your spouse is crucial to that succeeding, to that relationship succeeding. You have never had a relationship with someone like you will have with your spouse. And if it is not built soundly upon God and upon that good foundation of communication, it is also going to be very miserable for you. Okay? And I say that in love and from observation. Single calorie here.
All right, so we're going to move on to some more practical things, such as dating boundary examples and how those boundaries evolve. So what are some good examples of boundaries? Examples would be like, when should you hold hands? When should you kiss? How strict should the boundaries be? Is there such a thing as too strict? And how do those change over time as the relationship continues?
So that's what a lot of the answers, you pray. Something for, sorry. So I had a goal, I had a lot of goals for my relationships, didn't I? I had a goal that I was not going to kiss a boy till I knew I was going to marry him. I was also not going to tell him I loved him till I knew I was going to marry him. So in my head, this is going to be like a really good date. Where I was like, I love you, and then I don't know, kiss him. Like, I'm very really young, guys. So that's what I thought. And so I told Josh, we're like making our boundaries, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you I love you, I'm not going to kiss you until I know I'm going to marry you. I was like, but that doesn't mean you have to propose or anything. And like first, you know, like I was like, we can talk about it. Okay. To fast forward, a few months into our relationship, that we reevaluated and looked at our boundaries and what, you know, is there any hurt from this month? Is there anything that, you know, we need to talk about? Is there anything that's gone unconfessed? All that. So we did that every month. And at one of those points, though, Josh said, I want to re-look at the kissing boundary. And I was like, he wants to move it up. I know. Like, he wants to just kiss right now. Like, I'm sure. And he's like, I am not, like, I feel convicted. I am not okay with that until we're engaged. And so that was his thing. That was between him and Jesus. But there was something on my end that was so cool about that. Like, dating someone who, first off, was willing to, well, seek the Lord in that. And then be obedient in talking to me about that. And, like, he was the one who changed it. And so, like, that cliche of, like, the guys are going to have the looser boundaries or whatever, like, it was like everyone else's standard or what I was supposed to expect from the guy I was dating, like, went out the door. Because I had this guy who had sought the Lord and felt conviction, and then he addressed that. And that was, like, the coolest thing. Just to, like, at first I was like, well, that's lame. But then I was like, how cool is it that I'm dating someone who cares that deeply about not just me, but, like, his relationship with God, that he acted in obedience in that way. And so we found just a lot of, success isn't the right word, but I'm so grateful, I'll just say it, like, for Josh and, like, seeking the Lord in our boundaries, like, that prayer really was an element of establishing those. It wasn't just like, do you want to hold hands? Like, when do you want to, like, it had nothing to do with our desires. Like, he took that in that moment, he took that selfishness out of it, and he responded to what God had said. And so, anyway, Jesus has the answers, and it's not going to be the same for everyone, but anyway, that's right.
I kind of have some points. Okay, I'm trying to condense my thoughts for the sake of time. So I think I have 3 solid points. 1, have boundaries, okay, but have them in specific areas, okay. When we say boundaries, most of you guys, and I certainly did, would think of only, like, physical boundaries, like, when can we hold hands, can we kiss, can we look each other in the eye, okay, we'll look each other in the eye, not lick, okay, they do that in Japan, and it's weird. Alright, I'm back on track. Most people think of physical boundaries, right? But I encourage you to think about 2 other areas that I've learned about. Think about your emotional connection to that person, as well as your commitment to that person, okay? And in those 3 ways, you can love each other, and I've done a lot of study and stuff, but Simbas talks about commitment, emotion, and passion, or, you know, physical stuff, as being 3 ways to love somebody, okay? And so when you set boundaries, don't just think about the physical, think about your emotional boundaries with that person. Like, what can we talk about right now? What is healthy to engage in conversation with? When Sam and I first sat down at Sweet Melissa's to define our boundaries, I said, hey, I don't want you talking about my identity right now, because I'm working on that in my heart, and if you say something, it's gonna, just tip me off the fence or whatever, it's gonna hurt me really bad. So I asked her not to talk about my identity until we changed it. So, I encourage you guys to branch out in your thinking about boundaries. It's not just holding hands, it's like, how do I talk to this person? As far as commitment goes, define the boundary saying, I'm not gonna joke around about breaking up with you, or I'm not gonna joke around about divorce, or, that sort of stuff. Like, there are different ways to exercise healthy boundaries in different areas of your relationship. Okay, that's point one. And kind of two. No. And then, boundaries stricken up as you go further to marriage, okay? That I have been told by so many men in my life, and that is a necessity and something that I want you to learn and remember, is that boundaries get stricter, or they should, as you get closer to marriage, okay? And that is certainly true with Samantha and I. And so, those 2.5 points, Casey, I see your fingers, so that's what I have. 2.5-ish, somewhere in there.
You'll never regret moving slow, but people will always have regrets when they move too fast. And so take it easy, And we talked a couple weeks ago, last week, about those things that really speed you up, like spiritual gas pedal, emotional gas pedal, physical gas pedals, if you will, and just being aware of what those are. Having last week again, if you were here, editors in your life that you can talk to, pastors, maybe your parents, different people that you can talk to about boundaries, and with that, with your significant other as well. And if they're not willing to put boundaries on, then it's time to say goodbye to them already, just FYI. But they're not worth your time if they're not going to respect you in that way. But you'll never regret going slow, but people always have regrets when they move too fast.
So there's a law of progression. That when you experience something, then the next time you have to experience something greater for a greater high, and it just leads you down a path that's not good. Sometimes we're asking the wrong questions. If we're always asking the question of how far can I go, or what can I do, or where's the line, wrong question. When we first started relating, we were best friends. And we talked about all kinds of stuff, like sitting on the porch just talking. And we were not engaged in physical activity or asking those questions. We were really learning about each other. We were pursuing some of those character things, and is this what God's saying to us? And then we were 2,000 miles apart when we were engaged. And we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have texting, and we didn't have the internet. We didn't have FaceTime. So we actually read books and swapped books. And we would write stuff in the margins about what we felt about, and we would underline, and then we would swap books and say, oh, this is important to him. Oh, this is important to her. And we wrote cards. I have a big envelope, and it's stuffed with all the letters and cards that we sent to each other. So we spent a lot of our time doing that and not focusing on where's the line, what can I do, what can't I do, kind of deal. So that was very helpful to us.
That was so cute.
When is it time to meet the parent?
Real quick before we get into that, I'm going to give my response to that last one, which comes from my previous pastor. And his now father-in-law, when my pastor started dating his now wife, his father-in-law sat him down and said, make me a promise, never put my daughter in a situation where she has to tell you no. And so I've reevaluated that and taken it to heart of never put the person you're, for boundaries, find a place where you never put the other person in a situation where they have to tell you no. And then find your boundaries out there. and likewise, keep away from the boundaries. When is it time to meet the parents?
Day before the wedding.
if you guys remember on one of our lists, one of the things to ask about your future spouse was, can I see myself spending time with my in-laws? You know? And then also, do they like their parents? What's their relationship with their parents? So there's a certain part of that that's pretty important as the progression of the relationship that's going on. I remember the first time I visited Sonia's family, and it was in, well, I can remember the first couple times, but like her parents, it's funny because this is fast forwarding because it's funny because like I'm sitting across from them asking for her hand in marriage, like, I don't know, 7 months later or something like that. Actually, it was 6 months. We dated 6 months and got engaged for about 6 months, and then anyway. But we knew each other a little bit before that, but that's just a real short version of our story. But I remember sitting across the table from them, asking for her hand in marriage, and it's funny because her mom's like, oh, I just thought you were just one of her guy friends. For the longest time, she said something like that to me. So the first few times I stayed in her home, she didn't think anything of it. Because, so yeah, I was just like, wow, okay. They did say yes, though. But we both, because we were older, we both met our now in-laws pretty quick into the relationship. And I was a Chi Alpha pastor. She had graduated college, was working in the Lincoln area. That's where I was at the time with University of Nebraska. And I traveled throughout the state a lot, speaking in churches and things like that. So there's a few times I was in her area and with, or where her parents lived and stayed with them and spoke at an area church or something like that. So I remember doing that on a trip to Valentine. That was the first time I think I met your parents and a lot of the other relatives too, because they get together like all the time, and that was cool. And so I went up there and like, I don't know, there was like 40 of them probably that time. And I'm like, this is my first time. I'm like overwhelmed and whatever. And I'm just one of the guys, so that she brings home. So whatever. So, but I found that out later from her mom. So it was pretty funny when her mom said that to me. But again, it happened pretty quick in the first few months of us dating, because we were a little more serious from the get-go just because of our relationship and what we knew of each other and all those things.
I mean, my personal conviction, is if you're a serious Christian, then it's first coffee date and then meet the parents. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I think it'd be better to, to consider the person you're dating, because the dynamics of their relationship with their parents can be very different. But I think certainly at a point where it's important to them that you meet them. I think if you're unwilling at that point to meet them, that's kind of a red flag. But then, I think, I don't know, just at the point where, in my mind, like if it's starting to get serious or, then, talk about it.
Cool, real quick question. How's everybody doing? Are you enjoying this? Should we keep asking questions? I'm getting more yeses than no's, so we're going. Okay.
I'd say focus on a few questions for sake of time.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Cool. So, how did you work through addressing your hurts of flawed ideas of marriage as an adult? How did you work through addressing your hurts and flawed ideas of marriage as an adult? So what misconceptions and hurts might you have had from your parents' relationship that you thought this was how marriage was supposed to look, that as you progressed you realized maybe not?
I'm only going to speak the truth. You grow up in a family, you have certain family dynamics, and Stephen and I had very different upbringings. I grew up in the Lutheran church, quite liberal. My parents were very permissive. They were always like, if we can say yes, we'll say yes. Stephen grew up in a very authoritarian family, where the first answer was always no. And so when we got married, you know, you start realizing that this person that you thought you really knew and you loved, there's a lot of things about them that are coming up now that you're going, huh, I'm not liking this. And then you add children into it, and it really amps it up more. And we found out for us, you know, you get married, you think, oh, we love each other, we'll work everything out, everything will, you know, it'll be good. And then he throws his socks on the floor. And he squeezes the toothpaste in the middle. Or, you know, those endearing things become irritating. And so you get hit in the face with a real big dose of reality when you get married. And I think it's important. I'm not sure, I think it took us a few years to start having a sense of humor about those things and not get irritated about them, because you do. And I know that for us, probably the biggest thing we fought about was raising our children, because I was the yes parent. Well, of course you can do that. Yes, you can do that. His answer was always, absolutely not. No, you can't do that. And to this day, I say my kids wouldn't be able to swim, ride a bike, cross the street on their own, drive a car, talk, if we hadn't fought those things. So we spent a lot of time in our bedroom with the door closed discussing what we're going to do as parents, because you don't want to fight in front of your kids. So yeah, it was tough for us. Oh, no, you were.
The key is balance, and you've got to find that balance, because you do come from two completely different families when you come together. And even though you just think you're just marrying him or her just because they're the most awesome, you're also marrying their family as a part of it. Now, I will put the caveat here. I would agree, our kids would not have done all kinds of stuff. But both our kids love Jesus. They're both serving in ministry in full-time positions. And so, in the midst of all that, we did something right that God put his hand on. And so, so my initial answer to that question was, you learn it on the fly. So, and God will help you get the balance.
Yeah, I just have one quick thing to add to that. Some advice that my dad gave me, even before, he gives his advice just whenever he wants, and it's great. So it was even before I even was dating Elena, but he would tell me, it's like, Josh, choose the hills you're willing to die on. And whether or not you have the toilet paper over the top or underneath, like, that's probably not a hill you want to die on. Like, because, I don't know, and he told me, it's like, those are things that don't actually matter in the long run. Like the really big things that you guys are gonna have to work through, like, focus on those. Like, the little things, like, who cares? Who cares if you squeeze it in the middle? The toothpaste in the middle, or like whether or not you leave the shower curtain open or closed. You know, like, those things, like, they're not worth, like, getting. Shut up. I was trying so hard just to smooth past that, and you guys made it so hard. Anyways. You're welcome. Anyways, yeah, so, like, choose the hills you're willing to die on.
I guess Derek and I were thankful that we had good examples of what marriage should look like. Our parents have both been married over 40 years and over 50 years. But when you do go into marriage, you do have the preconceived notions of roles, and so that's one thing that you need to communicate. Communicate roles and expectations, because that'll lead to frustration if you don't communicate expectations. So I guess that was my question. I'm going to go back to the parent one, because I feel like I need to defend myself on when to bring the gentleman home. I hope that you all have good relationships with your parents, and if you, like, I would think that you would want to get their perspective on this person. So if it's to the point where you care enough to get your parents' opinion on it, yes, maybe that would be a good time. And I'm trying to like, I don't like talking into mics, I don't like talking, so I'm trying to go back. I need to take my kids home. All the things I don't want to say, I was scared to. Yeah.
Was there an embarrassing pet peeve that Derek does? Or did?
That goes back to the list, you know, the non-negotiables and the negotiables. I would say that he has all of my non-negotiables. He's not blonde hair, blue eyes, but, you know, this is great. So, yeah, go back to the Proverbs and look out for the qualities that you want to be looking for and the things you want to stay away from. And that's all I remember.
All right, so we'll do 2 more questions and then release everybody to the top of the smell. The first one is, how did you or do you recommend approaching the define the relationship talk? Yeah, like, from your own experience, how do you recommend going about it? When is it time to have that conversation?
Okay, this is always an interesting question. You know, I think for Carly and I, this is my fiance Carly over here, by the way. You know, we kind of define a relationship a little bit later than a lot of our friends maybe thought that we should have. And so, I don't know, I guess there's pros and cons, but I think you can I think there's a such thing as doing it too soon, or it's just awkward, or just like, I don't know, it's unnecessary. But then at some point, I think especially the thing that for me was, I had a friend actually come to me, and he was like, dude, like, you need to probably have this talk. I was like, I think you're right, you know, and just basically to be considerate and, you know, as the man, to lovingly take the lead and like to try to put yourself in the position of putting yourself out there rather than forcing her to do that, you know, kind of. So, I don't know, to be the one to take the courage to ask, you know, for it to be more than friends, or to as you go to the next levels of commitment, to don't just wait and kind of put her in the awkward position, kind of put yourself in the awkward position so that she doesn't have to be, you know, that's kind of my take.
All right, the last question is for all the couples. What is your favorite date night idea for here in Laradice? For Sam and Caleb, it's to go to Cheyenne.
Sometimes. We also went to Centennial once on a whim to eat up there. It was fun. In Centennial? I went up there to get green chili. That's right. It's in Albany. Okay. What we did just the other night was a lot of fun. Go to the store, buy some ingredients for a nice dinner, go back home and cook it and eat it. And so we made like an Asian-inspired, Americanized dish, like a rice bowl, chicken, broccoli, and then we made our own spring rolls. That was pretty fun, actually.
He's gluten-free and dairy-free, so. And then afterwards, we played video games, and it was pretty fun. I like the kid ones. He likes ones like the shooting ones, but I don't like those, so we don't play those.
Sometimes we go to the movie house and we buy popcorn and go home and eat it and watch a movie. Seriously, we do. What movie are you seeing? I'm not. I just want the popcorn. No. For us, what we like to do as best we can is we like to have a date night once a week. We can't do it every week, but we try to keep that as a focus, that one night a week we have it. And honestly, in Laramie, we go to dinner and a movie.
I remember reading at some point that when people have adventures together, that when you kind of have experiences together, that it kind of, I don't know, opens the heart up and draws you closer to one another. So one thing, this was kind of fun, I felt like. It's kind of interesting, but a fun date for Carly and I, probably more for Carly than myself, was mountain biking, because she's pretty good at mountain biking. I'm pretty horrible at mountain biking. And so she got to just watch me like wipe out and crash and stuff. And but we had a really good time at the end of the day. I guess making a fool of myself. And then, this last Valentine's Day, we went to the bouldering gym all by ourselves. We had like a private bouldering gym session. So we like to do active things. But then, so it's fun to include that, but then to also like read together or cook together. I don't know. It's fun to do double dates with other couples occasionally.
Yeah, we've done dinner and a movie a lot, and it's hilarious, just like they said. I don't know, sporting events, but usually she goes with me and isn't really enjoying it as much as I am, so. Yeah, that's what I mean by that.
I hear that.
An opposite, I think Blair means so cool. Do you know how many parks there are here? Like, and how many playgrounds? It's awesome. Okay. Basically, you can do a different park every single week, and you'd be set until like not at night, but in the summer when it's light out and it's less scandalous. These parks are awesome. My mom's got me in trouble for that. Live in community, people, for real. Okay. But actually, in the winter, though, we did reverse dinner, so we went and got froyo, and then we went to Wendy's and got dinner, and then we went to Applebee's and we got appetizers. And so it was like, dessert, and then a meal, and then, yeah, it was great. And it cost like $25. I don't really know how, except Jesus, but it was... That's true. Anyway, so we did reverse dinner, and it gave us like lots of time to talk. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that was nice. Also, parks.
Awesome. Well, does everybody want to give a big thank you to our panel? We actually have a special thank you for Pastor Stephen and Susan and Derek. So thank you for coming in this evening and being part of our panel. We really enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody out here enjoyed it just as much as everyone up here. So I'm going to close us out in prayer and then dismiss us to go either to Taco Bell, or if you need to talk to somebody about relationships or anything, grab one of these folks. So dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this fun series that we've had over the last 3 weeks. And God, we thank you for what you've been doing in all of our lives and this opportunity to learn and to become closer to you through a variety of new ways. God, we ask that as we move forward in relationships we have and relationships we may have, that you are at the center, and that beyond all else we learn to put our identities in you. And in your name I pray. Amen.